Hey dude, how's it going? Thanks for sending in your new version here. It's probably not going to be the longest review in the world because I think it's already pretty solid and it's in a good place. I do have a few notes and I'm going to answer the few questions you gave as well. Let's just take a quick look at this guy. Awesome. So yeah, I think it's feeling better. I think the energy is feeling better. There's maybe a little bit of timing stuff that we can get into in a second. So there's an overall thought I have with this, which is I think in general you are translating side to side too much on the camera, and I think you should be using more rotations than translations, because you're ending up with here, for example, like the camera translates to the right to follow the character. I don't think it needs to translate at all for like this move. It can just be on a track, you know, like it's a dolly, which is where a camera's on wheels, right? It's on like a track, and then they comp out the track afterwards, so that's moving along one axis, and then the camera's on top and that's swiveling in rotation, right? Now you can use a bit of translation and cheat here and there, and that's going to be fine, like but I think right now you're getting a bit of a weird effect where the camera doesn't feel grounded because it's able to translate so much, and it kind of is going to take away from the animation. You could just be simplified. Talk about that bit in the middle. There's another section, this section in here, I really feel it, where I feel the camera translating left and then translating really far out right. It's just following the character when really the character can use more interesting parts of the screen space. So here there's a whole half of the frame that's not being used. If our camera was still on this track here and we had to pan over in rotation, right, then he could be using more of this screen space when he goes side to side more, and that's going to be more interesting, and it's also going to make the camera feel more grounded. So that's the biggest overall note, and I think a lot of the other stuff is a lot clearer. The boxes, I think that's the next thing. So maybe you're having the same issue with the vent because it's strobing a little bit because it's coming in camera, but I think it could actually work. The issue right now is if you track, you know, certain lines of the box, like this line, well, there's a few things happening actually. Firstly, your focal length is actually getting wider over these few frames, which seems a bit unnecessary. I can feel the distortion happening where that's getting further into the distance because your focal length is getting wider. I think that's going to cause a bit of confusion. The other difficult thing is that if you track a few of these lines, what you'll see the camera is doing is it's not on a track, it's translating down, then it translates to the side. You can see this line coming in, right? And then it kind of hits a wall and bounces back this way and comes back out this way. If it was just going in a straight line in translation and then kind of tilts to track up with him, simplifies the whole thing, and it might work with you going through that hole, and it could be a cool thing. The issue right now is all of that jitter movement, which you can see with the camera when it goes through, combined with the focal length getting wider. You're just like fighting a lot of clarity here. Like simplicity and clarity in cameras is all you need. You just want it to be really clear, and that could then work. Like all you need is the camera to stay on that path, not go downwards, not have a focal length get wider, so that the box, you know, maybe comes in here instead of the first frame being over halfway up the screen already. The first frame could be, you know, way lower, the first frame we see it, and then that could progress, you know, because we're on a linear path. Well, because we're on a simplified path, that could progress in spacing that bottom line, and that's going to be way clearer then, you know, with this guy still clearer in frame, you know, and that would continue. Maybe by this point we're kind of up here, because we're going to be on that one track. It's going to be way easier to follow, and the jitteriness of the side-to-side motion and that kind of stuff is going to make that a lot clearer. Yeah, so that's the biggest section in there to figure out, I think. We're going to talk about this translation stuff. For me, I still feel like this run, especially both sections of running, this section of running is maybe a bit too long, but, you know, it might be okay. You said you need the running to read because maybe that's what the client wants. That's fine. But I do think this section is too long right now. It's like hold boom dum 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 dum. You know, that's like a really long section in there of running, and I think you can take out a good 12 to 24 frames out of this, and you would still be perfectly fine. Probably you could probably take a whole second off this. Dum dum dum. You know, like you're already on the next thing. It's like a few steps, like step, 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 jump over. You know, you're doing like 10 steps in here or something. I don't know. You're doing a lot of up and downs, and I think that's really breaking the rhythm of the shot, and it gets a bit stale because of that. All of this ending is cool. I think it could be cool if I see you have this vent coming up here in a second at the very end. Right, you have this vent at the very end here. It could be cool if you move that vent earlier, you know, even like here or something, or somewhere earlier, so it kind of justifies the sliding a little bit. That could be cool. So as the camera's tilting down, maybe you see the vent, and that justifies him going under it as he's sliding, right? Like that could be really cool. And I think that would make it a lot clearer. So those are my main notes. I'm just gonna, yeah. So there's not too many notes really. It's just simplifying a few things. Like the actual main motions are fine, like the timing of it. The only timing issue, like issues I have at the moment is, you know, this section as I just talked about. All the rest of it is just making the camera a bit simpler. In here you have this big translate where the camera goes right and left again. And I think it probably, you know, could just be, instead of going like this and following him, it could just, you could do a little bit of it maybe. Like you could just do a little bit and do it mostly in rotations. I just think in general you can tone down a lot of the translations side to side and do most of it in the rotation of the camera. You know, by rotating the camera around, following the action, instead of translating with it. And that's going to just make it a lot clearer. Cool. Yeah, that's my main thoughts. Probably a bit of a short review this time, but I think, you know, if you tighten these few things, these few notes I had up, like the plan is really clear, and hopefully you can see how by having it all figured out with this simple proxy geometry, it's going to make it way easier once you start posing, because you have everything kind of mapped out now. And once you get it working in proper 3D space, with a few of these notes, it's going to be really easy to just, you know, get that guy looking great and put some awesome poses on there, and it's going to be, you know, fun piece. So yeah, best of luck, and let me know if you have any questions. See you next time. Cheers.